Consent and action review meeting to order.
You want to start?
Yeah.
You want to start?
Yeah. We will start with,
You getting like LeBron.
No.
Germophobia.
the meeting is in order. Thank you very much. We will start with introductions, and we will start to my right with the Deputy City Clerk.
Deputy City Clerk Billy Tynes.
Good evening, everyone. James Mitchell, City Council at Large.
Good evening, everyone. Renee Johnson, and I'm honored to represent District 4.
Good evening, Lawana Slight Mayfield, council member at large.
Braxton Winston, Mayor Pro Tem.
Marcus Jones, City Manager.
Malcolm Graham, District 2.
Sharp Carter, District 6.
Ed Driggs, District 7.
Ed Driggs, District 7.
Patrick Baker, City Attorney.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Ed, your baby got married.
Congratulations to Father the Bride, who just entered right on time. We'll next go to our consent agenda items, items number 25 through 39, and these may all be considered in one motion, except for those items removed by a council member. Ms. Harris, do we have any items that have been pulled from council members?
No, sir. Ms. Mayfield, did that answer your question?
I would like for number 33 to be pulled aside for comment. Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Do any other council members have an item they want to pull for comment or separate vote? Hearing none, I'll make a motion I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items 25 through 39.
Second.
We'll have discussion. Ms. Mayfield, I recognize you for item number 33, was it?
Yes, 33. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So item number 33 is the Blanchard Development Training. And I reached out to get just a little bit more detail, and I am happy to say that this training, because what we have on here is to approve a not-to-exceed contract for $820,000, but this is specifically for the training of our staff. We have around 5,500 participants over the 5-year contract term. This is the situational leadership style competency that's being developed to meet people where they are and provide them what they need. And some of the courses are situational leadership, coaching essentials, conversational capacity, building trust, and self-leadership. And it costs around $150 per person to attend the trainings, but I want to say that I am happy that this is a training program that is offered to leadership to make sure that we are, to the best of our ability, working towards creating true equity in the conversations. So with that, Mayor Pro Tem, I would like to move to approve items A, B, and C. Approve the purchase, approve not to exceed, and authorize the city manager.
They're included, aren't they?
Thank you very much. Do we have any further comments?
God dang, I need a second.
Well, we have a motion that item is part of. So, any further comments or questions? Yes, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. So this is supervisory development materials. Mr. Jones, will we have any benchmarks? Will there be any surveys before and after, or any assessments in this training so that we can see the effectiveness of the training?
I'd like to call up Sheila Simpson, who could address the any types of benchmarks that you have with the training.
Thank you, members of council. I'm Sheila Simpson. Thank you, Manager Jones. This session has been held, the first set of sessions have been held across the city with our leadership teams, and we do have several testimonials about the session. But I think your question was, do we survey? Was your question a survey? What was your?
Do we have any quantitative measurements for the effectiveness of this training, such as maybe pre-assessments and then post-assessments?
We did not conduct pre-assessments. So we do have feedback from participants, and it is not in a quantifiable way. It is in a testimonial format.
So, Mr. Manager, I would just say for $820,000, it's a lot of money. So if there is any type of tools that we can use to demonstrate the benefit and the effectiveness of the leadership training, perhaps a 360 evaluation or surveys from the employees or something to justify and quantify the spending. Thank you.
We can implement a pre-training questionnaire and a post-training effectiveness questionnaire. And for that amount of dollars, the cost is about a little bit less than $150 per person.
Okay, and I don't know, maybe if we're looking at turnover rates in different departments and see if that decreases, or just to measure the effectiveness of the management training. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve consent agenda items 25 through 39, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. Hearing none, seeing none, that is unanimous. Well, now I will turn this section of the meeting over to the city manager for our action review agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. So we have two items on the agenda for tonight, and it's the Eastland redevelopment update that we had committed to you to come back to you within a 45-day period. I think we're at maybe day 42, 43? 42, as well as an update on social districts. There is a public comment, not a public hearing, but a public comment period tonight. We just wanted to make sure that while we had given you some written documents, this had got bumped before. So we have the social districts. And Mayor Pro Tem, we also have, during the manager's report, an update on the digital inclusion. However, if there's time permitting here, we would be able to provide that report too.
Mr. Jones is very ambitious, so let's get started.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Jones and council. Good evening. I am not going to bury the headline in this, and I'm just going to let you know that it has been a fantastic 42 days. As the manager said, we promised we would come back within 45 days. And what we've really done is really both teams have done an excellent job in collaborating, and we can see a path forward of how these two proposals can come forward as one vision. So before I go into the presentation, I do want to thank both of the teams, as well as Todd DeLong, who have worked on this day in and day out of the 42 days, as well as years going into this. Miss Ivory, Edge Sports, Robert Bolton, CSA, Southern Entertainment, everybody's been fantastic and really come together in such a collaborative way. I will be honest, 41 days ago, I was not so sure about this, if we could really make this work. And so it's really exciting to see where we are. So going into tonight, we want to remind you of some of the recent council actions and what you asked of us back on August 28th. We want to demonstrate the progress that we've made in the 42 days. And then we also want to ask, it's a little bit unusual, but we want to ask for your support to continue this momentum going forward beyond tonight. So, two important things happened over the summer. First, you set aside in a resolution $30 million, 20 of which was from tourism, 10 from CIP, for the redevelopment of the 29 acres. Now, this is on top of other investments that we had already committed to on the remaining 80 acres of the site in working with Crosland. Second, on August 28th, you asked us to investigate merging these two proposals together, and I quote, collaborate on a vision that would include indoor, outdoor sports, food and retail, and community. And that's what we're doing tonight. We're bringing forward the vision. We're not 100% there yet, but we see a path forward. Before we jump into what this vision looks like, though, I want to remind you of a couple of things. What Eastland was and what Eastland is intended to be. It was a gathering place that was an economic engine for the East Side. And it will undoubtedly become a gathering place for East Side community, but also a catalyst to attract others and celebrate what makes this part of our city so special, its diversity. So Eastland Yards, is a community. We are creating a community. And one thing that we realized after August 28th is we haven't spent a lot of time talking, we've so focused on the 29 acres. There's a community that is being created out there today. And the work that Crosland is doing on the 80 acres and putting the infrastructure in, but this will bring single-family housing, senior affordable housing, multifamily with ground floor retail, as well as a county park, all in phase 1. There will be room for future phases that can accommodate more than 100,000 square feet of commercial uses. So of the 80 acres, the community, the creation of this community has already started. The 29 acres was really intended to be a recreation anchor, and that's what we'll talk about a little bit more tonight. So, for a lack of a better name, we're calling it the complex. And we'll shift to this specific 29 acres. It has been reimagined and rethought as we merge the two proposals together. This new vision does fulfill the vision as a recreation anchor. It's connected to Eastland Yards as well as the east side. And it's diverse, it will be diverse in how it will bring people to the site. It will be active with all these diversity of uses and bringing and giving people a lot of different reasons to visit Eastland Yards. So I'm going to jump in really quickly to the components. I'm going to give you what's in and what's out. What's in, indoor sports still remains. With a facility large enough to host tournaments with several courts, it is planned to include ice as well in its first phase. It'll have community space for learning and after school, esports, workforce development and training. It will also have the community access. Outdoor sports. We will still have soccer fields and the ability to host tournaments. Up to 6 soccer fields will be included. Again, this comes with community access for play and gatherings. Arts and entertainment. Community gathering and events are still a part of this, and they should be. Arts and entertainment should not be lost in this. The ability to host festivals and bring people to the east side. However, what we do want to do is reposition this and get you to think about it a little bit differently. We're not just talking about large-scale events. We're talking about events of many different sizes. Think about a jazz festival or the Ola Charlotte Festival that was just held in Uptown this past weekend celebrating the Latin culture. Why couldn't that be here? Look at what South Park has with Symphony Park and their concerts. Large events don't happen often. They should be intentional and they should be special. But I do want to point out one thing that is not in here in this new rethought concept is an 18,000 person amphitheater for these large 18,000. Again, it was brought up multiple times in the last go around of an amphitheater to hold that many people. Next, restaurants and retail. Having food and beverage as a component of the 29 acres is very important. It will tie to the retail underneath the multifamily, as well as the retail that's proposed adjacent to the county park. All of this locates on 3 corners that are a arrival point onto the site. And it creates a sense of place that is inviting for people to come and stay. What's not included on this side of the 29 acres is a hotel. That doesn't mean that a hotel can't happen on the site. If you remember a little bit earlier, I talked about having future phases that can accommodate more commercial. So just because you don't see it on the 29 acres doesn't mean that it can't happen here on this site. And lastly, there's multiple ways for the community to engage in the indoor-outdoor facilities with the recreation, the learning center I mentioned, access for things like after-school programs, STEM education, access to digital literacy. This fabric of creating a gathering place for residents and visitors is very much in the forefront, and having access throughout will be one of the elements that we continue to work with as we push forward. So quickly, I'm going to ask Todd to come up and take over, but it's been 42 days. We've made a lot of progress. There's been a lot of collaboration on the vision, and there's still work to do in this progress. We're excited about the capacity and the expertise these partners bring and increased the opportunity of uses and what this might become as we move forward. So with that, I'm going to allow Todd to give us some more details.
Thank you, Tracy. I have the distinct pleasure of providing you with more details of what is in the complex. So the complex, it's a product of a collaborative development approach, combining to the 2 teams to offer key elements from each team's proposal to create an improved asset for the community. It's a combination of indoor and outdoor facilities, creating a year-round athletic hub to benefit the East Side and the greater Charlotte community. Before I get into a little bit more of the details of what's actually in the complex, I want to take another minute to reiterate some of the gratitude and appreciation that Tracy shared a bit earlier. We asked a lot of the team and the players who are shown here on the screen over the last 42 days ago, 41 days ago. It's really impressive the way they came together, the way they worked together almost seamlessly. They barely knew each other, to come together, compromise in areas that needed to compromise, lean in on the areas that needed to lean in to create a special place in East Charlotte and in this site. It's really impressive the way they did it, and really appreciate and have a sense of gratitude for each person and each organization that's shown on this list. Really look forward to working with them together over the next several months as we continue to make progress in implementing what's been proposed. So in a little bit more detail, in the indoor sports facility, looking at a 120,000 square foot facility, multi-purpose courts, which can be converted to 10 basketball courts, 16 volleyball courts, 30 pickleball courts, turf and other special purpose materials, for like cheerleading and other special events. A more robust food and beverage offering within the facility with concessions, bar, restaurants, a fitness center that would be available for participants of the tournaments and leagues, as well as for the community. An ice rink that would also be available for tournaments, leagues, and the community. A leasable space for complementary uses for medical, physical therapy, things like that. And then STEM education and esports center and a community learning center. Outdoors, we have 6 multi-sport artificial turf fields, which would focus on sports like soccer, flag football, lacrosse, and field hockey. And then we also have a food and beverage pad, which is about 6,000 to 12,000 square feet. The final sizing and the concept really to be contingent upon the economics, and really focusing on how do we start to cultivate local entrepreneurship, local businesses to really participate in this space and really create a special and unique place for East Charlotte. Also have 800 parking spaces associated and to support the tournament activities and programming. With respect to community use, the Community Learning Center, which serves as a hub offering community event space, workforce development, academic programming, and social support. A STEM education center, which would include, among other things, after-school programming involving tech education and gaming, senior-oriented programming, neighborhood access to facilities and non-event days. Overall, about 5,500 hours of community programming throughout the year. Again, there'll be multiple food and beverage options and select cultural and arts events, as Tracy alluded to a little bit earlier. The complex as proposed will generate significant economic impact from the tourism, from the tournaments and programming. In total, about $169 million in total economic impact per year, to generate 126,000 room nights per year, and would support 500 plus jobs through the development and the programming there. Through the different components that would be within the facilities, also offer workforce development programming and job training opportunities for local residents. The estimated project cost is between $90 and $100 million. The allocation between private and public is still to be determined. We are working with a certain amount of information that's somewhat limited to the site plan we've received in the last 42 days. We are focusing on the amount that was previously committed by council through the resolution from June that really entailed $30 million in public investment via hospitality and CIP funds. If additional funding is going to be necessary to finish this, we would certainly come back for council review and approval. Again, we are working with a sort of limited information that we've done over the last 42 days. And we need to continue working with the team to really get a little bit more clarity and certainty around the numbers that have been presented so far with respect to the infrastructure improvements, what the scale and scope of those improvements are, as well as the programming within the indoor space and the construction of the indoor and outdoor components. Again, we asked these two teams to collaborate and provide a reimagined proposal within 45 days. 45 days is a short amount of time to do a lot of work and to really get to where we need to be and where we are today. After 42 days of working really well together, their proposal we believe achieves the following objectives. Indoor and outdoor facilities that spur tourism activity and creates a new attraction for a diverse group of visitors. A diverse mix of food and beverage options with potential for community-based tenants and operators. Community impact through Community Learning Center and STEM Education Lab and health and wellness programming, and acts as an arts and entertainment hub for East Charlotte. As Tracy mentioned, it is a bit unusual to request approval or actions in the night we actually present during these sessions. In order to keep us moving in a more positive direction and continue moving forward with a good schedule and a quick, brisk pace, we are seeking approval for the following two actions, which is lucky number 13 in your agenda tonight. The first is to endorse the revised proposal and authorize staff to move forward with the new team. The second is to approve up to $30 million for reimbursement of expenses associated with public infrastructure improvements and the indoor and outdoor amateur sports facilities that was outlined in the resolution that was adopted by council on June 12th. And we still have a lot of work to do with the team, and we're really looking forward to continuing working with them. The last 42 days has been really successful in our mind, and we're looking forward to the next 42 and the next 42 after that and the next 42 after that, to continuing making progress on the site and getting us to a point where we're actually getting shovels in the ground and going vertical on all sides of the site and not just on one side of the site. So with that, I will end my remarks and open it up for any questions and comments.
Thank you very much. Again, as Mr. DeLong said, we will be asked to take an action on the second part of our meeting in the business agenda side, so we can discuss that item during that time. So I know some folks on the council do have questions or comments about this presentation, and I will recognize Ms. Mayfield to go first.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. DeLong, I believe either Ms. Dawson or you stated the amphitheater has been removed from this, correct?
Correct.
So there is no more amphitheater, because I know Park and Rec was building an amphitheater. Also, when over these 42 days, was there opportunity for the community to stay engaged in these conversations as we were looking at merging? Because I'm looking at this breakdown of development team. I guess these are the larger businesses that are on the slide where we have the logos and we have other project partners included. I want to make sure that, one, did the community have a chance to stay engaged with these new conversations?
So I can't say for certain which community members were engaged throughout the process. We had 42 days. And I will say we used every minute of these 42 days leading up to today's presentation to get there, to get to where we are now. It's my understanding that both of the teams have met with Charlotte East or members of Charlotte East and other individuals to kind of keep them engaged and apprised throughout the process.
And just for aesthetics, I'm looking at this development team and project partners. We had two separate entities that were interested in being the development leaders. How does some of the groups get reduced down to a project partner when this was what I thought was coming back to us in 45 days was a true partnership, collaboration, not I'm going to lead this and you're just going to be a project partner. Help me understand how that conversation changed a little.
So the makeup is largely the same as it was prior to the new team that we have today. The project partners or the development team that I mentioned here on the left, the Edge Sports, the Charlotte Soccer Academy, and Southern Entertainment, they're the main drivers of the development activity and the programming that will be occurring on the site. The other project partners have been really integral to getting us to where we are today and will continue to be integral to the programming and other pieces, and they'll be partners with Edge Sports Global, the Soccer Academy, and Southern Entertainment as we continue to move forward. So this is really, from the makeup perspective, it hasn't really changed a whole lot from who is kind of leading and driving the development activity on either of the teams.
So we know words matter, and we know language matters, especially when it comes time to having contracts. And again, for my understanding, when I supported the idea of adding an additional 45 days to these conversations, is that what would come back to us is a showing of true partnership. Just initially, because I know not going to necessarily identify the specific agency, but one we could do a Google search on, and financially they're in a very different position, which was one of the challenges that we had on one of the initial proposals, is that we didn't think that they had the financial wherewithal and backing to move forward. Well, that is the case for one of the other partners. So I just want to make sure that we're being as transparent as possible when we're looking at government dollars, to make sure that that language is creating space, not for, as a partner, you don't really have a true voice in the design and the makeup. When you started out competing to lead a project and then encouraged to be more of a sideline partner. What I want to ensure to the best of our ability is that we haven't taken a group that for some of us presented a strong proposal and they are moved to a diversity box, for the lack of a better word right now. So I want to make sure that we're keeping as much transparency as far as the true viability. Mr. Manager, I also would like to make sure that we are very clear in our language of that 30 million, period, because in here, in this presentation, is a public-private allocations to be determined. Our allocations, it should be very clear, is a full stop period at that up to $30 million.
So thank you, Ms. Mayfield. So as you heard in the presentation earlier tonight, that's exactly what we understand. If it's more than that, we come back to you to have a further discussion before we would do anything.
That is what I heard that was shared, that if it is more, there will be a coming back to council. I would like for us to consider a full period at that up to 30 million, because we've been having these discussions. So to even give the impression that there is the possibility for additional negotiations because one or two other groups might not be able to move forward, we are having this conversation multiple times. We are having this conversation now because you have said we are the ones that can make this happen, because we didn't have the support on either side to move forward. If you are the group that can financially make this happen, there should not be an additional conversation later of any additional funds when we have said council has approved 30 million, because we have a lot of other projects and needs in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayfield. Ms. Ajmera?
Thank you, Mr. Winston. Great job, Ms. Dotson and your team, for bringing the best of both worlds. I think the biggest challenge the community had was amphitheater, and that was addressed. Clearly, community had quality of life concerns around noise, especially the neighborhood of Willora Park that just within a few blocks of this site. So I'm sure that Willora Park neighborhood and the east side is very appreciative of the work that you both have done to address that concerns. I'm really excited to see that we are going to have indoor sports as well as the soccer facility and multiple food and beverage options, so that we don't have to drive all the way to other districts to get food and beverage. So really excited to see this. A couple of questions. At the soccer facility, I know that some members on the east side had asked me this question about, would that be artificial turf or the natural?
At the current time, it is planned for artificial turf, just to allow for for multi-purpose events and more events, and without the reduction of challenges with weather and maintenance and other things.
Yeah, so I understand that Ms. Dawson mentioned Symphony Park in South Park area, and that has natural atmosphere that really attracts a lot of diverse concerts and festivals. I think that's a great facility. If we can explore that option for the east side, because it's also good for, we are talking about our youth. We want to make sure that they are safe as they play any sports. And I'm not an athlete by any means, but if you ask any athlete, they would prefer natural versus artificial turf. So if we can just take a look at that and see how we can help with that. You provided 38 months timeline. That just seems a little bit long. We're talking about 3 years. I may not even be here in 3 years, but is there a way to figure out a little bit more condensed timeline? I know that East Side has been waiting for this, for the catalyst for far too long. I would like to see if we can figure out maybe a little bit sooner time frame. I know that when we were presented with both proposals a couple of months ago, we had more condensed timeline than 38 months. So I'd be interested in seeing that just more aggressive timeline. And I know a lot of these public and private allocation is still being worked on. But this $30 million of city's funds, 20 is from the tourism dollars and 10 is from the CIP. That's a reimbursement, right? That's not our first money in. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have, or you may not have gotten to this level yet, but I would be interested in seeing the debt and equity ratio. Just being mindful of the environment that we live in right now with financing rate being so high. I'd like to see debt to equity ratio just being more reasonable. And other than that, I mean, majority of my questions have been addressed. I really appreciate the work that's being done, and I look forward to supporting this, and I can't wait. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ajmera. Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I too want to just lend my voice of excitement and enthusiasm for where we are today versus where we were some 42 days ago. I think the collaboration made sense 42 days ago. It makes more sense today as I kind of see what we have done in terms of taking the best of both worlds to combine them for one project for Eastland. So I'm very excited about it. I'm also excited about the work that Tim is doing. I never want to forget that Crossing Southeast has been out there doing the work since last August. And so I don't want to forget, I don't want that point to be missed in all of the talks about Eastland, is that work has been commencing out there for well over a year now on the outer section of the site, which in some cases may even be more important because it's housing, it's jobs, it's senior housing, et cetera. It's the 4 to 5 acre park that Mecklenburg County is going to do that will join this 29 acres once it's completed. And so I want to thank Tim, I know he's in the audience, for his continued support and his patience and the work that he's done. I think this is a marvelous collaboration, and I look forward to voting tonight in the affirmative, which is basically a vote of confidence. And confidence in the work of the staff, confidence in the work of the collaboration between the two parties. I personally stayed away from it for the last 42 days, getting periodical updates and from both sides. And I'm just glad that we're at this point, and look forward to further comments tonight around the dais. But I think this is exactly what we said we wanted to happen 42 days ago. Now, as we move forward, the devil's always in the details, and you're getting ready to do a whole lot of details in terms of the financing, the debt equity, those type of things, whether or not we should go above or below the 30 million. Those things will be explored as you kind of dig deeper moving forward. So certainly when you guys come back to us, I think that's the conversation we should have then versus having that conversation now, because again, I said it right from the very beginning that if we went down this route, we own it. Right? I was very clear about that, right? There's not a whole lot of turning back from this point. So we got to make sure that we dot i's and cross t's, that we take the public expenditure into consideration for sure in terms of anything that we do, whether it's this project, other projects, that there is, from my perspective, based on what I'm hearing today, which I think is we're moving in the right direction, I'm not sure there's a whole lot of turning back from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Todd, can you bring up the program overview slide? Thank you. What was the decision to move East Sports Center indoors to the sports facility? I thought it was a standalone on one of the proposals. So what was the decision to move it indoor?
So in one of the proposals, the esports was part of the hub, which
Right.
was the 25,000 square foot building facility. It really comes down to size, and it actually fit well within the indoor facility in terms of their square footage and placement. So it seemed like a natural fit to have it inside of that, which also saved room to accommodate for the 6 fields and adequate parking for both facilities, both indoor and outdoor facilities.
So the original 25,000 square foot wasn't needed for East Sports Center?
It was in the original proposal because he didn't have a larger indoor sports facility in that other proposal. That was the only building that was in the previous proposal.
So how much square footage does East Sports Center need now?
That's what we're working through over the
Okay.
next stage. So they're still working through what the finite programmatic details are with how to divvy up the square footage for the different elements that fit into there.
And my last point I would make, I think it'd be great community buy-in if we could have a naming contest so the community would continue to feel they are part of this complex. I like the placeholder now, the complex, but I've heard names out there called the Yard. So to get community buy-in, I think it'd be a great way of making sure District 5 say we own this and we're supporting it. So I hope that's something we can engage the citizens in District 5. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Driggs.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I'm really excited to get this news. I have to admit I was a little skeptical that maybe the 2 proposals might turn out to be mutually exclusive, and the fact that we have been able to come up with something that captures the best of both of them and is responsive to East Charlotte is a big win as far as I'm concerned. So I am prepared to support our proceeding tonight. What I will say, though, is picking up on the comments of Ms. Mayfield and Mr. Graham, there's a lot of information that we don't have. I mean, I'm seeing this tonight for the first time. I'm trying to assimilate it quickly. I have questions. So I'm wondering what the kind of timeline looks like, and what kind of check-in do you expect with us, or what kind of updates will we get so that as the other information is available. And I note in particular there is one line in there that says additional public funding may be necessary. And I think, thinking about what Ms. Mayfield said, we need some clarity about that. So how do you imagine going forward? I mean, we vote tonight, and the council says, yes, appreciate what you've done and like where you're going, and then what?
So from here, we go into the next phase, what Councilmember Ajmera talked about, getting it, and Councilmember Graham talked about, getting into the details of the financial structure, understanding the scope and the scale of the infrastructure improvements. What's more complicated, what makes it more complex is, Crossland Southeast is out there on the site today. And so there needs to be a nice, smooth handoff between what Crossland Southeast is doing and what the team will be doing when it comes to site improvements with infrastructure, roadways, greenways, things like that. So we need to start mapping through what that schedule looks like, what the cost of that might be, the vertical improvements. We need to better understand what specifically that is. We also need to understand how the components fit within the indoor sports facility with respect to the square footage allocation, to Councilmember Mitchell's point. So I think there's a number of details we have to work through, and the cost is part of that, but there's also some of these programmatic elements that we have to work through with them as well. This is 42 days worth of work, which is really exciting to where we are today. And I think the next 42 days, we hope to make some additional incremental progress to getting to where we need to be and have a little bit more certainty around where we are, and then the next 42 after that. So I think we're going to continue to make incremental progress. And we can huddle internally to talk about when that looks like in terms of updates to council. if we need additional funds, or if that's what the numbers are telling us, then we'll certainly need to come back in an environment like this or something else to actually update council on what the needs may be and to see if there's support for that going forward.
So, again, when would you actually check in with us? Or, I mean, are you assuming that if we vote tonight, then you're done as far as the council is concerned?
No, we can provide updates as we go along, whether it's through committee or through an environment like this. So I think we can look at the council schedule, getting into the end of the year and what looks like for the timing. I think we would need to talk through with the development team to understand what looks good for them as well. And because we don't want to come back to the council if we don't have sufficient updates for that, and we don't want to put the cart before the horse and provide updates before we're really ready with the development team either. So I think before Christmas could be a good time, and before the holiday season, it could be a good time to come back to council, maybe for an update. But I think we got to continue vetting what this looks like before we can actually set, we're going to come back in X number of days.
So my personal message to you would be, go ahead. Yes, love what you're doing. But I really want to know when some of these issues get resolved, how they came out. And so there's a presumption that we are in support. But, if you could just fill us in as you go along, I think that would be valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm curious about the business structure, kind of piggybacking off of what Councilwoman Mayfield said. I know it's 42 days, they've gone well, we're in the honeymoon stage, but we essentially required a partnership where there was not one. So is there any type of joint and several liability in this agreement? How are we requiring the partnership, that the partnership stays together?
That's something else we'll need to work with them on. Presumably, there'll be an LLC that gets set up with a sort of a partnership of different organizations that will create that LLC, and they'll have their own roles and responsibilities amongst themselves. And we want to make sure that they stay together. And we'll have a separate agreement with that LLC and that group of individuals, that group of organizations. So those are some things in the details we've got to continue working through that we just haven't had enough time at this point to really fully vet and actually work through and solidify.
So we're approving tonight for you to move forward. Is it possible that that agreement come before council so that we know who we are in contract with and how that's going to look? Ms. Mayfield talked about the partnerships and the equity and how that looks. I think that's important that council is aware on what that joint structure looks like.
So the joint structure, trying to think of how long, it could take a little bit of time for them to work through. Again, they just met each other 42 days ago. So I think they need some time to figure out where they actually fit and how they fit and what their own attorneys and where they all sit in together. So it's hard to say at this stage and at this time what we can definitely have in order to continue moving forward at a pretty expedited pace to make sure we're delivering the asset and the amenity for the community.
So let's say that it didn't work out, then the council would contract with just one party? I mean, I know we're still working that out, but I think that that's something that should come before council, maybe a final approval after that partnership is set up to ensure that that everything's transparent and that everything, excuse me, that has been listed and promised is delivered.
So I have to double check on this, but I think the way the action is actually presented in the council action, it is as the merging of the two proposals and the two teams. So if one team were to not be included any further, we would need to come back to council for additional approval if we were to move forward with if one or fewer than the two teams that are listed.
Okay, and you're certain of that?
Based on my understanding of, I'm not an attorney, but based on my understanding.
We have an attorney at the table, okay. Mr. Baker, can you give us some guidance or comment or?
So I'm just going to say it this way. If you want clarity to make sure that you know exactly what the deal looks like, you can ask the staff to bring it back to you. There are a couple of things in here, and obviously if for instance, the $30 million piece or what have you, if it starts to bleed over $30 million, that's not something that the authority that you're talking about here would allow the staff to go forward with. But given some of the questions that have been raised, if you want that level of certainty, you can just ask the staff to bring it back to you for an update, or this is where we are to answer those questions. But yes, if there's a material change in the structure that's in front of you, that would not allow the staff to go forward based on what's here. But again, there's a deal that needs to be constructed. Our office will be with the staff every step of the way to put that together, but we don't have that deal in front of you right now. That's to be determined, or not to be determined, but to be constructed. And if the council wants that level of assurance that it is consistent with what you're authorizing tonight, there are ways to bring this back to you so you can see it, and we can.
I mean, that's something that I would think that we would want to see before we approve the $30 million to be spent. I mean, I think that that's important, but it's up to council as a whole.
Well, just.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones.
And so, thank you, Mr. Baker. And so however you would like to shore up the language tonight, that's definitely the will of the council. What we were trying to do tonight, and thank you, Tracy, Todd, and the entire team, is to make sure we didn't get to a place where it's no-go. So if we start to think about it in the framework of this is go, there's a lot more that you have to do. There's parameters. Don't spend a dime over $30 million without coming back to us. And you may even put more parameters around it tonight. What I will say is that we have a lot of people tonight said, many people tonight said, I'm not sure that this thing was going to work. So it's good that 42 days in, everybody's talking, everybody's at the table. And we would just ask you to let us stay at the table, let us stay talking, and we don't want to frustrate you. And so if you ask us to come back next week, I'm convinced we won't have much more than we have tonight, right? So it's, I like what Todd said, coming back, before the holiday season, around the season, to make sure we're giving you an update. But I will commit to you, the first time that it seems like all of a sudden we went from go to no-go, we're going to also come back and talk to you then, too.
Thank you. I don't want to slow the deal down, but I just think that's important when we're talking about a partnership that wasn't there before, that we sort of required. I think it would be appropriate to at least ensure that all parties are at the table before the money is spent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Watlington.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I concur with some of the comments around the table. Overall, I'm very, very pleased with what I've seen here. Thank you to everyone who's worked on this. I look forward to seeing what it ends up looking like. I had the same questions about, well, what exactly is it that we're looking at? So I would be supportive of some kind of absolutely a head nod tonight, but when it comes to the specifics of the contract and whatnot, would like to see that come before council again before final execution. I did have a question. One of the things that stuck out to me in the previous conversation was the idea around community ownership in the way of a board in which, because of the amount of public investment, there was still some public governance with the project. So I'm curious as to has that been discussed yet, what that governance will look like? Because I saw there would be a mix of some outright sales, but then also some ground lease. So I wanted to know whether or not that component of a previous proposal was still retained.
So the idea of community governance will be part of the next round of conversations with them. So we have not forgotten about the comments you had over the last almost a year now. So we want to make sure that those are integrated into the next phase of conversations we have with them and make sure it still stays at top priority of what we're looking at with them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This looks very, very promising, so I look forward to seeing where it goes.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I am very excited to see what's in front of us this evening, and just 42 days after we had the concept of having a collaboration of these two entities. This will clearly bring vibrancy and an activity to the Eastland Mall site in a way that has been missed for years. So I'm very, very excited about that. It does sound like effectively that we have a good outline of what the project will entail, but there's details, there's chunks of details that we need to create and suss through over the next couple of months. And so it makes sense that we, the council, would have an update before the holiday break on how those details are materializing, so we can help shape and form the go-forward plan. So I do support that as well. I did notice on page 18 that in terms of next steps, the direct ask on the agenda, of course, item 13 is for the endorsement of the approval and authorize staff to move forward with the new team, which I clearly will support. What I have a question around is item B underneath that aspect. So if we're not quite sure how much the overall project will cost, I see we have a t-shirt size, which is great. But if there is an additional ask over 30 million, and our 30 million is specifically earmarked for reimbursement purposes, just help me understand why we need to approve that aspect of the agreement this evening if you're going to come back to council during the holiday season with an update. So I'm assuming that there won't be an excessive amount of dollars spent between now and before the holidays where you come with an update. So why do we need to include B in our motion this evening?
Todd, I'll help.
Okay.
Okay. So I think without B, it's almost as if you're just saying go for it. So we started to say, let's make sure that at a minimum we have the parameters that we started with the last time you told us to move forward. So it was more or less putting parameters around us than just having A.
Okay.
Said it perfectly.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, if we don't put the $30 million on there, then we could be saying 50 million.
So I understand that, but putting the $30 million towards the project, which I'm in complete support of, I want to be unequivocally clear on that, but that doesn't preclude then an additional ask on top of the 30 million that could materialize by the end of the year.
You're correct. And then we would come back to you, but I 100% understand your thinking, which is if we had to come back anyway, why put the 30 to begin with? So again, we just wanted to make sure that council didn't think that we were making some assumptions that would do anything outside of what you've already given us the authority to do.
Sure, okay. I thank you for that explanation. I just want us and I completely understand 42 days is not a long time. And so what we have in front of us is there's been a lot of heavy lifting within 42 days to have this new proposal. But I just want to ensure when we come back in before the holidays that there's a concerted effort to have a clear understanding of the financial stack that will support this program on a go-forward basis. Understanding that the market changes, I get that, but we need to at least understand the elements of our financial stack and that we have right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayfield.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Follow-up, Mr. DeLong, based on response to Ms. Johnson's question. 42 days in, we're creating a new structure. We don't know what that structure looks like. The action items bullet as well as continue to work through. For me, it will make sense for this council to look at that last line of nodding our head to continue to work through the agreements necessary. I've already shared my concerns on the fact that we've already allocated 30 million, and what I just heard the manager respond to is that can be interpreted to give the impression that we are open as a blank checkbook for them to come back for additional, since the 30 million is for reimbursement. We need to see exactly how these funds are going to be allocated, because if one or two of the new entity does not have the financial capability, we need to be able to clearly see that on the front end. One of the concerns of many that I have with my initial question is, we have approved a lot of contracts in this city. We have approved a lot of contracts with a prime and a sub. We have seen plenty of times, especially when it has come to Black-owned, minority-owned subs, their contractual amount has not always been fulfilled when the contract moves forward. We say, well, that's a separate conversation, whatever reasons. If what we have in front of us is language of the possibility of a creation of something new, it will be helpful to know exactly, as Councilmember Johnson mentioned, what is that new that we're committing to? Because what I would not like to happen is for this council or a future council, since there will be a minimum of one change, potentially two changes or more in November, for a new council coming in December, and it is a completely different proposal that's presented to them because this conversation fell apart. It's great to say in these 42 days, before we approve an allocation, other than continue to work through agreements necessary to implement the proposed development, we need to make sure that we are truly doing our due diligence as the representatives that are allocating $30 million plus for a project that's added to the $100 million plus that we've already allocated to this area. Also, if we go back to the economic impact and transaction structure slide 17, we have on there the significant impact from the tournaments and programming. Second bullet, 126,000 room nights per year. Have we identified, since we stated that in this new proposal, the hotel has been removed? We already know when we have our current sporting events, how quickly locations in Uptown for apartments and other things are filling up. It will be helpful when you bring back the information. Where are we anticipating these room nights going when we don't necessarily have the transportation system to get you from Uptown over to the east side for these events? Are we looking at shuttles? Are we looking at an additional cost in order to help offset that, since we no longer have the hotel as a component of this? Because in that proposal, that would have been an automatic connection for me. I'm not going to speak for my colleagues. Well, we have these events. These events are going to generate so many room nights. We have a locale right here. It will be helpful to know what that looks like, so that, again, the next conversation is, now that we move forward with this, we need to identify where the people are going to stay when they come visit, or we're going to need additional funding to help with a shuttle or to help with some type of special transportation, or are we looking at a PGA type of thing where they park at South Park, they figure it out. If we're going to put in there how many potential room nights are in there, and we removed a component that would have housed a couple of hundred people, it will be helpful to really have an understanding. But, Mr. Manager, I hope you're hearing the piece of, yes, I support the idea of staff continuing to work through the agreements, but right now we don't have an agreement. We have some individuals that have been having conversation. We have a spreadsheet that identifies a couple of leads and a couple of partners, when that is not what we were told when we approved the idea of an additional 45 days. What was supposed to come back to us, I was thinking was going to be more collaborative than what we're seeing. We know the 30 million is out there, but the idea of endorse the revised proposal and authorize staff to move forward with the new team, we don't have a new team. We have an idea in here, Mr. DeLong just mentioned, well, we don't have a name, we don't have a LLC, they're still working on it. We need to be careful with the language because the city attorney has already shared that when council approves certain language, and that language is kind of vague, when it's time for it to come back to his office and it's time to negotiate some very specific requests, not saying that that is the case this time, but his office has received pushback from developers saying, well, that's not what council approved, i.e. that's not what council mandated. We need to be very careful in this language as we move forward with this partnership to make sure your local body that's approving this have a clear understanding of who we are getting into a contract with. Thank you.
Thank you. I just would point out that about 42 days ago, staff came back to us with a recommendation of moving forward with QC East. My understanding of what we're going to be asked to vote on today is that they are changing that recommendation to move forward with a combination of the two. What was presented tonight is quite similar, I think, to what was presented 42 days ago when the recommendation was to move forward with QC East. These details have to continue to be worked out. And again, this is staff's recommendation. So I don't see any others. Ms. Molina.
Now, you know you couldn't leave without me saying something about this. Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. My apologies to my colleagues for coming in a little bit later, but I guess I'd be remiss without saying hats off to you, Mr. Manager, and your team. I realized that when we began this process, it would not be easy. We have two completely divergent ideas that under circumstances that they wouldn't have even known. I don't even know if I've ever heard of two people who were competing for the same slot saying, now I want to work together so that we can have the best outcome for the people of East Charlotte. So I know we have a few of them in the room, and I'm happy that they're sitting together. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, I think that for this council, we have to honor the fact that we got two people who were competing for the same exact spot to say they want to work together, and they're in the room with us, sitting together. So I am above the moon, and I know that we have a lot to still answer here. I am 100% on board with continuing to have two people sitting beside each other who have the people that I represent in mind and coming up with the best opportunity for them. I think I feel honored. I feel blessed to have a council that was even willing to support me to do it. And I'm even more blessed to have people who are willing to do it. So I think some very important points have been brought up. And I'm sure the team will be, working to answer some of those questions. I'm looking forward to, the follow-ups. But I think we have something, we have the ingredients for a great recipe that I encourage anybody who wants to do business with the city of Charlotte to model the behavior of the two entities that we have. Because, I mean, the optimal outcome is the outcome that considers the people in the city. And that's what we have here. So, again, Mr. Manager, Tracy, Todd, option A and B, Mr. Cinema, I really appreciate you guys. It means a lot to me. And I know it means a lot to the people of East Charlotte that you're deciding to do this. So thank you. Thank you to the team, and I look forward to the update.
Thank you very much. I think everybody has spoken. Mr. Jones, it's on you.
So Mayor Pro Tem, you were right. I was a little ambitious, but we'll still get we'll get what was decided for the agenda action review done. So next we have Debbie Smith and team will come up and talk a little bit about social districts. As I mentioned earlier tonight, there's a public comment period when we get into the chamber, but just wanted to let you know where we are with social districts.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. So great to see you this evening. Mr. Jones gave 90% of my opening remarks here, so no. So Debbie Smith, I serve as your Transportation Director, and with me tonight is Casey Mashburn, and he serves as your Deputy Division Manager within our Development Services group. And so he oversees the group that involves special events. So many of you have interacted with Casey on special events. He also oversees our right-of-way section. And so with that, Casey's presentation that I'm here to support at the end really is about the highlights of what it means to be a social district and what's unique about the Charlotte area. But then we're really going to dive into the details on the Plaza Midwood Merchants Association, their application, and all the details related to their application. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Casey. So thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, city manager. My name is Casey Mashburn with the Charlotte Department of Transportation, and I'm here to give you an update on social districts in Charlotte. So as a refresher, social districts are areas where people can walk around with open to-go containers of alcoholic beverages. Those beverages must be purchased from within the district in a special to-go container, and they must also be consumed within the district boundaries. In August of 2022, Council adopted an ordinance enabling the creation of social districts in Charlotte. Our ordinance established the legal framework by which we could consider community proposals, and it authorized the creation of the standards and provisions document to guide the process. Since that time, CDOT has published the final standards and provisions, and we have been receiving pre-applications and applications. In North Carolina, there are approximately 32 social districts operating currently, and what all of those districts have in common is that they're within one centralized core geography in their city or town. They were also established by their city or town that they were in. So how is Charlotte different? Well, early on we heard from our residents how important it was to consider multiple areas of Charlotte. Charlotte is full of vibrant and unique communities such as South End, Plaza Midwood, NODA, and many others, and this is really unique from other jurisdictions. And that's the reason for the ordinance framework. The Charlotte approach empowers and enables community-driven proposals. It lets the community tell us where their priorities are. So to guide the applicant and staff, the ordinance also enabled the creation of the standards and provisions document. And we've heard some talk about our milestones within the document, but it's really meant to serve as a basic guide. It covers things such as an application, management maintenance plan, and the need for community engagement and public comment. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about the social district approval process. And the first milestone within the process is a pre-application and a meeting with city staff. And I think of this as the exploratory phase of the process where both the applicant and staff get to sit down and learn about the proposal. And they may or may not choose to move forward, but if they do so, they would begin developing their application to meet the city and state requirements. Once they've done that, they would then submit to city staff for review, and we would ensure that it does indeed meet those requirements. And at that point, we would look to move the proposal forward to council in the form of a public comment period where you would hear a little bit more about the proposal and receive comments from the public. At a subsequent business meeting, you would then have the opportunity to vote on an ordinance amendment to approve the district if you choose to do so. So I know I've talked a lot about an application, so I just want to cover what's in an application. It's really three basic components. First is a boundary map, so where's the district located? Next is the management and maintenance plan, so how is the district going to be operated and maintained? And lastly is documentation of community engagement. I want to touch on community engagement a little bit more because this is something that we heard loud and clear from our residents. They want to have a say in what happens in their neighborhood. And so we built this into the process by requiring that the applicant demonstrate clear support by way of a simple majority petition for the district. We also require that they hold a community meeting and provide at least 2 letters of support from neighboring HOAs or other business organizations. So who's interested? Well, as you can see on the screen, we've received several pre-applications to date, and these groups represent various parts of our community. But I do want to emphasize these are pre-applications. They're not obligated to move forward at this time, but they may choose to do so in the future. And to that point, we have received one application to date from the Plaza Midwood Merchants Association. So with that, I'd like to transition to tell you a little bit more about the Plaza Midwood proposal. First, I'd like to orient you to the map provided by the Plaza Midwood Merchants Association. And this area is just east of Uptown along Central Avenue in the Plaza Midwood area within Council District 1, Councilmember Anderson's district. And the green lines on the map denote the district boundaries, and the blue dots represent the signage that is required by state law. The district is generally located from west to east along Central Avenue from 10th and Louise to Morningside Drive, and also from south to north along Pecan Avenue from Chesterfield to Hamilton Place. In total length, the district is approximately 1.3 miles long and is a rough size of 44 acres. So a few details about the proposal. First, the operating hours are proposed to be Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. in accordance with our ordinance. And the management maintenance plan specifies that the district will provide all of the funding for initial and ongoing proposals. They will establish a committee for oversight of the district. They will provide all of the boundary and business signage that's required. And they plan to utilize reusable stainless steel cups to meet our sustainability goals. For community engagement, they did provide a petition showing clear support from the community by way of simple majority. They held their virtual meeting on June 1st of 2023 with approximately 75 attendees. And the Commonwealth Morningside and Chantilly Neighborhood Associations both provided letters of support. And in summary, this application has met the minimum city and state requirements. So as part of the process, this application did undergo a multi-departmental review to ensure we gained a broad perspective from potentially impacted city departments. And so the Office of Sustainability had no objections to the proposal and supported those sustainability goals within the application. The Attorney's Office, Planning, CDOT, and Solid Waste had no objections pending minor revisions to the management maintenance plan. These really circled around clarifications related to citing applicable general statutes and city code. Also, clarifications related to trash and recycling responsibilities, as well as the removal of some language related to the permitting of vendors and special events. CMPD also had no objections to the proposal, but would like to continue the conversation with the applicant on the opportunity to enhance public safety. And specifically, they want to discuss the addition of intentional signage for excluded or opted out locations, continue conversations on the district boundaries and potential impacts to surrounding areas, and lastly is clarifications related to providing a community liaison to work with CMPD. So lastly, I want to talk next steps. Later on tonight, you will receive comments from the public, and the applicant will also be on hand to answer any questions that you may have about the proposal. Your October 23rd business meeting would then be your first opportunity to vote on an ordinance amendment that would approve the district if you choose to do so, and assuming a successful vote, the applicant staff would then work on the final details to implement the district. And with that, Debbie or I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for the presentation. I have a couple of clarifying questions. In committee, we just received an update on our review of our city code of ordinances. One of the things that was in that review, specifically our ordinances of potential relevance to policy referral, beer and wine consumption, possession of open container, disposal of containers, masturbation in public, urination and defecation on certain property prohibited. I am trying to understand how we have that conversation. And part of the challenge in the presentation from CMPD is we changed some language where we're not tracking certain challenges. Currently, all of us have received a couple of emails, some more than others, regarding us instituting our open container, indecent exposure, and public urination current ordinances. With the idea of trying to move forward with social districts, how are our current ordinances going to be solidified and enforced when we are already having challenges for events that are happening around our city where we're seeing these challenges without having a specific social district. So it helped me understand how a conversation just last week in regards to CMPD's interaction for these concerns and social districts, which is a direct determinant of some of these same issues, helped me understand how they correlate.
Yeah, so I think, first off, great question, and they are definitely correlated in some ways. I mean, naturally, it's the same topic of conversation. And I will say our ordinance right now was amended in August of 2022 when we adopted the social districts ordinance to have a provision to specify that while open containers may be an ordinance violation, they are approved in certain situations such as a social district. Now, our conversations with CMPD and the applicant have really circled around that we are going to continue to enforce the rules as we can. Open containers are only approved in the special to-go containers within the district, so you can't purchase some other type of beverage or another means or methods to receive an alcoholic beverage and walk around with the community. Has to be in that specific to-go container. And this is something that CMPD will have obviously work on to enforce in their means and mechanisms.
So as we're having this conversation, again, we just received a presentation stating how, honestly, CMPD is not tracking a lot of these incidences the way they once were, because we're having them a lot more often, and we need our law enforcement to be focusing on other things. Is anywhere in this language the expectation for the businesses to contribute with their own paid for security to ensure? Because again, if we're already having a challenge in Chapter 15.3 of beer and wine consumption, possession of open container, and disposal, so we're saying we're going to create a social district. You can have that container in that district. What is going to be the increase of trash cans, whether it's Big Belly or whatever it is. We have gone through Uptown. You can go through Uptown on the weekend and see trash overflowing, see trash on the ground. We don't need that in our waters and streams. Masturbation in public, 15-82, 15-83, urination and defecation on certain property that's prohibited. What are we saying that we're putting in place to protect the residents? So we look at Plaza Midwood. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of residents that are there. So you're in the social district. You are a person that unfortunately does not know how to hold your alcohol. You have your container, but then you cause property damage, whether that property damage is through one of the three that I've called out or another way. What protections are we putting in place for those homeowners that are now going to have the regular occurrence of drunkenness and the impact of that on their property and in their community?
So there's a couple of points in there I'd like to speak to. And first, I would like to touch on kind of the litter and recycling aspect that you mentioned. And we have addressed this within the proposal. And a real key to that is the applicant has agreed, and as part of the process, they will be responsible for any trash directly related to the social district, so specifically the reusable cups. And they also plan to utilize the reusable cups, not only for our sustainability goals, but it also helps to minimize the potential for litter and other items such as that. On some of the other items such as drunkenness in public and things of that nature, this does not change any of the existing laws out there. And so public intoxication is a state law at this point, and so that would still be enforceable by CMPD. I will say the applicant and the application does not have any provisions that the district would provide any additional policing or any things of that nature.
Manager, it would be helpful to, before moving forward, even though we're going to have a public hearing, it will be helpful to have our law enforcement to be a part of this conversation. As I mentioned, if we have our current open container, indecent exposure, and public urination ordinance, if we were to reinforce that, how would that impact this conversation? And what will be the financial impact on taxpayers with the increased law enforcement that is going to be called into these areas? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you to both for the presentation. This is actually a salient moment. It's a milestone in our social district process. Casey and Debbie went through this pretty easily, but there has been months and months of meetings, interfacing, answering a lot of questions with the Plaza Midwood Merchants Association, myself, the two of them, as well as CMPD, the legal department, Solid Waste Services, CDOT. Everybody has been a part of this process. So I wanted to, Ms. Mayfield just walked out, but I wanted to ensure her as well as everyone else that CMPD has been at the table and they've put their thumbprint on this as well. And you're going to hear in the forum later on tonight from a couple of the individuals that are part of this development process. What I do want to say about Plaza Midwood Merchant Association is they really and truly do have a process. They have developed a process for the rollout of the social district. So not only the reusable cup, but they have a process by which there will be dating and tagging of that cup from where that drink came from. There will be clear signage, as we mentioned earlier, around the boundaries. And in addition to that, they're going to have ambassadors once the social district is open. They're establishing an ambassador program. So once the district is open, there will be members from the Merchant Association out on the streets just socializing what this means to be a social district and the behaviors that are expected and should be active in this area. So there will be an educational piece for the community as well. But they see it, and I see it as well, as an opportunity for increased walkability for a neighborhood. This is a neighborhood where there are lots of residents that live on the outskirts of the nucleus of Plaza Midwood, and they would potentially have to drive or take other transportation services to get to the actual social center. But with this, unlocking this opportunity, community members can walk from their houses, from their friends' houses to establishments and do it legally and enjoy their community. So it'll be increased walkability and increasing the opportunity to have a greater nightlife in Plaza Midwood from a safe perspective. So I am very, very happy that we're at this point. I know the Merchant Association is as well. We've had some questions from community members as it relates to safety and other things, and the staff has done a great job of connecting the dots with the ABC board and other entities who have gone through this process. We're not the first community to stand up a social district in North Carolina, and we're not the first community to stand up a social district within Mecklenburg County. So there is some precedence for this, and those social districts are doing well. So of course there'll be some unknowns, but we'll as we roll it out, we'll address those as we do. But I just want to say thank you for all of the work that you guys have done to spearhead this process, and looking forward to hopefully voting for the first social district in the city of Charlotte in an upcoming meeting. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I have Mr. Graham.
Just one question. Thank you, and thank you for all the work, Councilmember Anderson, that you have put into this. But is there any clawbacks? I mean, things go sour, we want to come back, go backwards. Are there any clawbacks?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as Councilmember Anderson mentioned, I mean, this is going to be an iterative process. This is our first one. We're learning on the go, and we're going to continue to learn. The comebacks would be, if we see any opportunities that we can address at a staff level with the applicant, we would naturally do so. And ultimately, the hope is never to have to come back in front of this body to address an issue like that. But it is an option. There's no requirements that once we establish the district that we can't revoke the district at some point in the future. Hopefully we don't, but there is that opportunity there if needed.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Johnson.
Just one question. A couple questions. Do we have any data if social districts increase alcohol consumption?
Fantastic question. So I will say there's a lot of anecdotal information around social districts. So I don't have a particular answer to that unique question. I can certainly look to follow up in a report, but my assumption is I've done a lot of research on this topic is that I doubt there is an answer to that exact question, specifically because these are still relatively new within the state as an idea at whole.
Okay, so thank you. So last week, the ABC board was here, and they talked about training merchants on recognizing excessive alcohol consumption, if there's any resources to help keep residents safe and patrons safe. So I'd like to see the merchants in the social district to ensure that they have the training, and also if there's any tools for ideas to reduce drinking and driving. If there's any resources out there, let's make sure that we're equipping the merchants and also the patrons with tools to be safe while they're having a good time.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So I will add just one point on that. So the ABC Commission, every establishment that will sell alcohol within the district is an ABC registered body, so they are receiving that training from the commission as well. And we will continue to kind of amplify that message for you.
Okay, and then if there's anything the CMPD offers, I mean, just any ideas to reduce the drinking and driving, if there's coupons, I don't know what it is, but let's make sure that we are considering that.
We have the same goal
Okay,
there.
thank you.
Seeing no more comments or questions, we will move downstairs for the business meeting of part of our meeting. To order.
Oh, yeah?
You in favor? Okay, good.
Wait, am I
This
over?
first business meeting of October, we will start with introductions. Since we started to my right upstairs, we'll start to my left downstairs.
Good evening, Patrick Baker, City Attorney.
Good evening, Victoria Watlington, District 3.
Tharp Card is 6.
Ed Driggs, District 7.
Malcolm Graham, District 2.
Braxton Winston, Mayor Pro Tem.
Marcus Jones, City Manager.
Good evening, Luana Slight Mayfield, Member at Large.
Good evening, Renee Johnson, and I'm honored to represent District 4.
Good evening, everyone. James Mitchell at large.
Good evening, Marjorie Molina, District 5.
Happy Monday, Dimple Ashmera, and welcome. I'm serving you as an at-large member.
Billy Tons, Deputy City Clerk.
Good evening, Dante Anderson, District 1.
Thank you all very much. We will begin our meeting with an invocation. Our invocation are expressions and inspiration, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation by the council member is intended to solemnize our proceedings. We celebrate the religious diversity of our community, including those without a religious faith. Tonight, Councilmember Graham will give our invocation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We'll bow our heads. Dear Father, we gather here today as representatives of our community, entrusted with the responsibility of guiding and shaping the future of Charlotte. We approach this meeting with humility, seeking wisdom, understanding, and unity. Grant us the vision to recognize and prioritize the needs and aspirations of all those we serve. May we approach our deliberations with open hearts and minds, valuing diverse perspectives and pursuing solutions that promote justice, harmony, and progress. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move on to our awards and recognitions part of our agenda. I will recognize Ms. Anderson, who will read a proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and welcome to everyone who's in the chamber and watching us. Very happy to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day today. And I'm going to read a proclamation that the mayor has put forth to help us celebrate the culture and the enrichment and the diversity that this community has helped provide the city of Charlotte and the state of North Carolina. Whereas throughout the centuries, American Indians have shared their knowledge of land and resources while continuing to play a part of the development of the city of Charlotte, the state of North Carolina, and the nation. And whereas North Carolina is the home to more than 204,000 American Indians and have 8 historic tribes legally recognized by the state of North Carolina. The Coharie, Eastern Band of Cherokee, the Saponi, Lumbee, Mahiran, and Occaneechi Band of Saponi, Saponai, and Waccamaw Siouan. And whereas the city of Charlotte enjoys a positive relationship with the the American Indians citizens, recognizes and encourages the acknowledgement of the historic contribution and sacrifices of Indigenous peoples, and respects the cultural and economic contribution that American Indians continue to make, and whereas the city of Charlotte promotes the closing of the equity gap for Indigenous peoples through policies and practices that reflect the experiences of Indigenous people, ensure greater access and opportunity, and honor the nation's Indigenous roots, History and Contributions, and whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nationals to the United Nations sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous People Populations in America. Now, therefore, by Alexander Lyles, the mayor of Charlotte, does hereby proclaim October 9th, 2023 as Indigenous Peoples Day in Charlotte and commends its observance to all citizens. And it's signed by Mayor Lyles.
Thank you very much. And now, Ms. Mayfield will read a proclamation recognizing October as Charlotte Women's Small Business Month.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. In attendance tonight, we do have our National Association of Women Business Owners, and I would like to recognize some of our members: Christina Jarrett, Carol Knight Pegg, Rochelle Stewart, Trina Sherman, Maurice Kumar, Emmy Kirshner, Brenda Harris, and Melinda McVadon. Hopefully I got that correct. Whereas women-owned small businesses are an economic engine and own 42% of all U.S. businesses, employing 8% of the private sector workforce. 66% of American female business owners are the sole owners of their companies. And whereas the Charlotte metro area ranks #1 for women-owned firms for growth in number and economic clout, and whereas approximately 92,500 women-owned small businesses in the Charlotte metro area are generating $13.3 billion in sales, employing 70,000 people, and whereas the city of Charlotte values local women-owned small businesses and celebrates the diversity of ownership in goods and services they provide, as well as the contributions they make to our community, and whereas October has been designated as National Women's Small Business Month to celebrate the achievements of women business owners, and is also designated as Charlotte Women's Small Business Month to celebrate the achievements of women and business owners, the achievements of women business owners in the Charlotte region. Now, therefore, by Alexander Lyles, Mayor of Charlotte, do hereby proclaim October 2023 as Charlotte Women's Small Business Month in Charlotte and commend its observance to all citizens and urge all citizens, businesses, and community organizations in Charlotte to join this salute to women business owners by encouraging and promoting the celebration of the achievements of all women business owners as they contribute daily to our economic, civic, and cultural goals and livelihood. Witness my hand and the official seal of the city, Mayor by Alexander Lyles.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mayfield. We will move on to item number 8, which is our public hearing, section of our agenda, and it will be a public comment on the proposed creation of the Plaza Midwood Social District. So we are going to open those public comments, and we do have speakers. This time we have 4 speakers who will have 3 minutes each. For Jason Michelle.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. I'm Jason Michael, Executive Director of Plaza Midwood Merchants Association. Clifton is the president, sweet guy if you've met him. We are a small business organization that represents 70-plus businesses in the Plaza Midwood area. that represents decades of experience in retail and service industry sectors, including the many on-premise permittees that have responsibly managed serving alcohol to the public for decades. We are very excited to finally be here in this process. It has been a challenge, but that challenge has only made our plan stronger and better. And we look forward to stewarding the social district if you grant us that privilege. The main goals that we have come upon that we're excited to see come to life and enhance in Plaza Midwood, like what's happening in other districts around the state that have been in existence for almost 2 years now, is to activate the pedestrian network, support our local businesses, facilitate community, and improve public safety. A lot of these districts have definitely helped these business sectors and communities thrive, especially during COVID. Plaza Midwood is obviously growing and facing a lot of challenges. A lot of businesses have been impacted, but we take a lot of pride in being a widely diverse community with people from all across the spectrum of humanity. And this kind of activity we see as just a way to really facilitate community, have people being able to move about, have community celebrations with ease. So yeah, that's it. I hope we get to be the first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Russell Ferguson, you have 3 minutes.
Barney,
Hold down here, Ross.
you wanted to be last.
Got to go in the order that it was received.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, Council. Pleasure to be here as a human, not a lawyer. I'm a board member of the Plaza Midwood Merchants Association. Hey, those that know. I'm here in the capacity as a board member. I'm a community member. My wife and I are also business owners of one of the old establishments in Dish and a second generation. The process hasn't been easy. We've gotten stronger for it. You've heard of that. You guys are familiar. It's been a little bit like the rezoning process, except it was being built as we worked with city staff. And thank you to city staff. It's not been easy for them either. It's been new to the city. And thank you to council, particularly our district rep, Councilman Anderson. You made us really warm and fuzzy inside when we heard you on TV. From the boundaries to reusable cups, the components of management, we have a plan for this. It involves our residences. We're unique in that we're a merchants association that is run by people that own businesses and live in the neighborhood. It makes us a good candidate to test run this and try it out. The biggest issue that's come up is a question about the boundaries, and that is something that we needed to do to be inclusive of our membership and of our neighborhood, and to speak to the properties that aren't as fancy or as well-known as the properties that are much more expensive and higher rents. And we really appreciate the grace to be able to move forward with that. And biggest thing here is if it doesn't work, we'll be the first to know, and we'll be the first to reduce or eliminate it if we get to that point. We don't believe it. There's over 30 districts that have done this without horror stories. 2 years in Kannapolis, this will be the third in the county. So I guess as a greater thing to this, and something that speaks to a lot of other issues about the council, is we kind of believe in trying to plan for something that the best of us and the most citizens of law-abiding intentions can enjoy. We don't think that quality of life issues has to be defensive all the time. We think we can plan to do something as a community to make it good, and we think we can manage it, and we're going to try, but we're going to keep evaluating. We're going to work with law enforcement and with city to make sure we do it right. We'd appreciate that you guys support us on this and vote for it when it comes up in a few weeks. And I'll end with the most frequently asked question is when. We got to do this. I'm getting stopped on the street. I've done too many news things, and everybody goes, when are you going to do this? You're supposed to do this. You said you're going to do this, and we're working on it. So please, please, please vote for this. Thank you. And I'm here. If you have questions, I'll come back.
Thank you very much. Bernie Petit, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem and council members. I will not be as eloquent as Russell was, unfortunately, but thank you for granting me the time tonight. My name is Bernie Petit, and I have been a Plaza Midwood resident for 18 years. In addition to being here as a longtime resident, I am also here as a board member for the Plaza Midwood Neighborhood Association, or PMNA. PMNA's mission is to foster an attitude of neighborhood spirit and involvement on the part of the residents of Plaza Midwood through the development of recreational, social, cultural, and educational programs and facilities in the Plaza Midwood area. As such, PMNA's board is in support of the Plaza Midwood Merchant Association's efforts to create a social district. We believe this effort will support our small businesses and help maintain an environment that encourages a diversity of music, art, dining, and entertainment in our neighborhood's business district. The Merchant Association has provided regular updates to both the board and residents throughout this process, and they have worked to address both board and resident concerns throughout the process. Their willingness to listen to neighbors to find outcomes that illustrate a respect for what they've heard should be commended. Moreover, the merchants have been incredible supporters of both PMNA and the neighborhood, and many of them live and work in the neighborhood, which is why we have trust that they will not do anything that brings negative attention or light to our neighborhood. For PMNA's board, this social district is about more than walking around with beer. It's about creating an environment where residents and visitors are encouraged to visit and support our local businesses. I appreciate your time and hope you will join us in supporting PMNA Plaza Midwood businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we will have Yazan Humadeh. You will have 3 minutes. 3.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yazan Humayde. I'm the owner at Sip City Market and Bottle Shop. We're a small little retail shop with really good food, Mediterranean food, a large variety of beers, wines, kombuchas, non-alcoholic beverages, and a lot of different varieties of items, as well as snacks and desserts. And we've got a lot of, I've been in the area in Plaza Midwood for 5 months now. I'm actually moving with my wife to live in Plaza Midwood October 28th. Being there for 5 months, I've gotten to see what the neighborhood is like as a community. Everyone truly goes out together as a community, gets to know each other. Like a lot of the new customers that come to my store, it will be a husband and his wife and kids, and you'll see some other people walk in with their wives and kids, and they're like, oh, that's my neighbor, and that's my neighbor. Everybody's a community there. So with that being said, like everyone walks and supports each small business. There are several businesses that offer the same services as I do, the same environment and vibes as we do. But what Plaza Midwood likes to do is they support the small businesses equally. So in order for them to do so, they would have to, like I did that actually yesterday. I got off work, went with my wife. We walked from my store to the Thirsty Beaver Bar, which is right down the street. We had a drink there. We went from that shop to the next shop, had a beverage. This is over like a 5-hour, of course, period of time, but we went from business to business to hang out. But one thing we kept seeing is like when we're ready to go, we don't want to stay at a place for too long, 30 minutes, an hour. We're having to finish our drink, chug the whole thing, and then walk to the next business. So it's actually forcing us more to drink more before we go to the next place. So, but if we were able to have our beverage with us, going from this bar to a boutique shop like Winnie's Boutique, we're able to go from this place, shop around with some clothes, with a beverage, go to the next shop. It creates a cool community vibe, and that's what Plaza Midwood already is. So that's my speech. So hopefully y'all are able to help us support this. Thank you.
Any discussion of that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Seeing none, that's unanimous. And before we move on, my apologies, I was just made aware that we do have members of our American Indian population that would adhere to receive the proclamation that Ms. Anderson recited earlier, so. please
Thank you,
come
Mayor
down.
Pro Tem. I'm going to invite our members of Metrolina Native American Association to come down and receive the proclamation. They represent several tribes in our community.
Thank you very much. So items 9 and 10, both public hearings on our historic landmark designations, have been removed from tonight's agenda.
Oh.
Yeah. And so we will move on to item number 11 under our policy section of our agenda, the city manager's report, and I will turn it over to Mr. Jones for his report.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. I have in front of you the 30-day memo that we give to you each time that we have a business meeting. I would like to use the time that I have tonight to give you an update on the Smart Charlotte Digital Inclusion Plan. As you will recall, back in January, you uplifted the concept of bridging the digital divide as a council priority. So we're trying to make sure that we keep you updated with that. And so I assure you that these aren't superheroes that are coming down, but they really have cool names like Markel Story and Rachel Stark. And they'll talk with you a little bit about what's happening around the council priority around Smart Charlotte, the digital inclusion plan update.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, City Manager, Council. My name is Mark Storey. I'm the Chief Technology Officer and IT Director for the city. Today, the team will give an update on the Smart City and Smart Charlotte Digital Inclusion Update. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Rachel Starks to provide that update.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, and City Manager. It's great to be with you all.
Rachel, do me a favor, just put the mic down a little bit.
I'm not as tall as I wish I was. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm Rachel Stark, the Smart Cities Program Manager with the Innovation and Technology Department. And on the heels of Digital Inclusion Week, I really wanted to say a heartfelt thank you to you all for your commitment to closing the digital divide here in Charlotte. It's such important work, and you guys have been really supportive and great in these efforts. Tonight, I'm just going to provide a really brief update on our digital inclusion work, since our last update was at the end of February. With that, could I get the next slide? So tonight we really have three main updates that we're going to be giving tonight. And then with these, I want to remind you and ground you in the fact that this is really about our digital inclusion work is not just about internet access and making sure people have access to computers and the internet, but really making sure people are benefiting from the internet access that we're providing them and really benefiting from these digital tools that we're putting out there for people. Next slide. This slide probably looks familiar to you. It's the same format that we've used before. With this, as a reminder, back in December of last year, we closed out our first pilot around internet access, and we launched a new update to this program, Access Charlotte, in June of this year. We also have made progress on the digital literacy work, continuing to support the Center for Digital Equity and our Digital Navigator program through that. And we have also been testing out computer-enabled devices through a pilot Learn to Earn program that we just ran this summer. And lastly, the Universal Service Platform down towards the bottom. We are doing some work with Google.org and an open source software called Civiform to really streamline people's access to the services and resources we offer. Next slide. So this also probably looks familiar. These are our most updated numbers for 2022, so it's updated from what you saw last. These came in just a few weeks ago. We have made really great strides to closing the digital divide around internet, but we still have a ways to go around computer access. But those numbers are looking really good. A 25% drop down to 50,164 households that do not have internet at home or may only have dial-up or cell phone use only, cell phone data plans. And then with homes without computers, that's looking at people with no computer access or cell phone device only. Thank you. Next slide, please. So again, thanks to the work of council, the investment of council, and our ARPA funding, we are now at 3,600 households connected to the Access Charlotte program. And then additionally, we have 15 community spaces with internet provided, and this launched on June 20th of this year. So we expect those numbers to continue to rise over the next few months with the adoption work that we're doing on the ground. Also with this work, it's important to note, you may have heard Dana Fenton's update earlier this year with committee saying that the Affordable Connectivity Program federal funding is set to run out probably in early of 2024, and therefore we should be considering what we need to be doing as we move forward. And thankfully, we've been doing that through this Access Charlotte work, and we're working with our partners to figure out a sustainability plan for this work. So moving on to digital navigation on the other side of the slide, we are continuing to work with the CDE team. And so far, 130 residents have been supported through this program, not only around Access Charlotte and the ACP program, but really thinking about the work that's needed to get people devices, affordable computers, upskill around their digital skills, and then getting that technical support for things that they may need to be doing around the computer. Continuing this work, we're working with Jamar Davis as our Access Charlotte coordinator, is on the ground in the community working with our digital navigation team as well as with Spectrum to help make sure people have what they need. Next slide, please. So as we move forward, we know it's not just about internet. We really need to be looking at all the other things people need, including devices, getting computers that they need, making sure that they also have do the digital literacy skills so that they have the confidence to really go about their work on the computers that and internet that we get out in the community. So with this work, we're trying to make sure that we're promoting upward mobility with this technology, improving our own tools so that it's easy for people to use the tools that we set out there, and building pathways for innovation technology that is inclusive and equitable. Next slide. So digital inclusion is definitely about upward mobility because you really, in this day and age, we all use the internet, we all use computers, and we want to make sure that we're getting that first step that people need to get familiar with those tools, with that internet access, how to navigate safely, and really making sure that by having internet, by having those devices and those digital skills, that we're unlocking a world full of opportunities. Next slide. With our Learn to Earn concept, as we worked on this, we realized that there are many different efforts related to this going on in the community. And rather than create something completely new, we found that there are some opportunities to really galvanize some of the work that's already been done on the ground and really work with our partners. So for example, the library serves as a fundamental training space, and people are comfortable going to the libraries and getting training. We also wanted to make sure that we're thinking about a plan that is getting people quality computers, something that's functional, can serve all their different needs, and can be used for a wide variety of end goals that each of them may have. And part of this, for example, is thinking about Hire Charlotte. We've talked about that a lot in council. This is a baseline to get them to Hire Charlotte as one of many different things that someone could go in their pathway towards upward mobility. Next slide. So before we went full scale on the amount of funding that's set aside for this, we wanted to make sure that we piloted and tested out what would be a really good solution for this effort. And we worked with the West Boulevard Library. They have the MEC Tech Connect program that they were running. And we said, okay, we know that people are getting internet in this area. Let's also provide them with some devices and digital literacy upskilling opportunities. So we did some direct outreach to over 750 residents and additional outreach through flyers and Nextdoor app and word of mouth. And we reached a lot of different people. And in the end, we had 100 spaces available, 69 people applied to the program, and 13 people successfully completed this program. And this gave us the opportunity to really learn what it is that draws people to this kind of learning environment, what it is that motivates them to participate, what are they trying to achieve beyond what we think that they're trying to achieve, so that we can really shift our curriculum, courses, and credentials to really meet the needs and goals of the people who we're trying to serve and really benefit them. And what we want to do is make sure through this program and the learnings, and we're actively getting feedback from people who participated in the program, either fully completing and graduating or moving on to continue to work with the community to get to the additional additional 43 people, I believe it is, who did not quite complete the program, work with them to figure out what it is that they need to really be successful and get that computer in the end. Next slide. So the recommendations we have are that we continue to work with our partners. Everyone had a lot of different things. There were instances where some people became really sick and they weren't able to continue on the program. They had other priorities. They found other devices that they could get in an easier way. And so this program was really tailored and meant to be something that everyone could shift and choose, for example, like what computers they would like to use and what they would need as they move forward. And a lot of people do want to have that opportunity to shape what it is that they're trying to learn, and not just be focused into a pigeonhole of, oh, you need to learn about resume writing, when they may be really skilled at resume writing, but there's some other workforce development skill that they may really need. Next slide. So to end on this update, we are continuing to work on the Smart Charlotte program to make sure we're building that pathway for innovative technology, knowing that we need to work with the residents we're working to serve. Next slide, please. As we move forward, we want to make sure we really understand how we can deliver tools holistically that serve their residents' needs around digital inclusion. And we also want to make sure that we are better including residents in shaping the technologies that we select as a city that are intended to benefit them or may positively impact their experience throughout the city. With that, I am thankful for the time to be here, and I will take any questions or feedback.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for this detailed report, and congratulations on the work that you all are doing. I have a couple of questions. The main one is, we are experiencing both a lot of young people as well as a population of elders that is increasing. Unfortunately, we also know that for some, as we get a little older, there are some challenges, whether that challenges be beginning stages of dementia, other things. Sometimes energy or excitement may arise. What are we putting in place at our libraries to ensure specifically our elders have access? I don't know if my colleagues, I would assume they also received an email. I received an email from an elder in the community. I can only ascertain from reading between the lines, even though I'm not psychic, nor do I play one on television, that there was probably a heated conversation, but they've been banned from the library, and that's their main source of communication. That's also their safe space. So I would like to know if you've had any thoughts or any conversations on the what if, because if it is beginning stages of dementia or Alzheimer's, unfortunately, the reality is we've done studies that aggressiveness and anger issues are part of that transition, not for all, but for some. So when we think about resources, what resources are we putting in place for specifically our elders and for our residents that may be on a level of the spectrum where if they're running into challenges and get a little frustrated, to help them maneuver or navigate, or have you possibly even considered the what-ifs on that?
Definitely. I mean, seniors and people with disabilities are both on the list of people most impacted by the digital divide. And so with those, what we find so far in our work with the pilot and with continuing conversations with people in the community is that we need to work with those trusted community partners that work with them. And so there are these specialized groups that work with different groups, whether it's seniors specifically or people with different abilities, and trying to make sure that their needs are covered and met. We also have the digital navigation program that anyone can reach by calling 311. There's also a web version online that people can use for just one-on-one connection with somebody. So we're trying to basically build out a lot of different pathways for people to get that service and support that they need.
I will also add, if you can consider adding that as a part of our CLT Plus app for individuals that are a little bit more comfortable with the computer versus calling 311. But this is amazing work. Thank you for all that you have done, and thank you for already taking in consideration the impact of our elders and those who may need a little more assistance. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you very much. Ms. Ashmira?
Thank you. Great job, Rachel, with this presentation. Appreciate the work that you're doing with the pilot. And I liked how you identified focus areas, because every part of our city has unique needs, where you have youth, seniors, immigrant, low-income, English language speakers. I know there are organizations that work with seniors, have limited English proficiency. Have those groups been identified? And I know some of them also need a device. What are the plans to, I know this is just the pilot, but I was wondering if there is a plan in place to address that, because there is a digital divide that we do need to address, because a lot of the community services that we access is through internet. And when you don't have an access to a device or do not know how to use it, it's a huge barrier from accessing community services.
Definitely. And I would, so on that note, there are some organizations that we know of, but what we're trying to do too right now is to make sure we reach out to the people who either got the word previously or participated in part but did not fully complete the program. And even online, we have a new button on the Smart Charlotte webpage where we're asking people to give feedback to find out who it is that they work with, what are the community groups that they work with, so that we can start to identify who else we can reach out to. Obviously, the library had a great advantage because they already have devices and internet in their locations. And with the Access Charlotte service, we have 15 community space sites set up, and these are facilities mostly for seniors, and I think one is for people with disabilities. And those 15 locations, we can obviously provide digital literacy training there on site with internet access. The Center for Digital Equity also has tablets that people can use to get their initial learning complete. Once people have finished that learning, then they earn a brand new computer that they can take home and continue to advance their learning or use it for other needs. And I think one of the other learnings for this is some people may not need a full-on computer. There may be some people who are okay with a tablet, but because so many tablets have been put out there and so many smartphone devices, there's a really big gap out there for people who need a full functioning low-maintenance computer.
Well, I'll connect with you offline, where an organization had reached out that had a need. So I'll connect you with them offline.
That sounds perfect. Thank you. That would be amazing. And if anyone else obviously has some connections, we're welcoming all that input and feedback.
Very much. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for the presentation. I just have a question about, I have a nonprofit organization where I assist individuals in the community, and I worked with Bruce Clark.
Yes.
Queens College. So they have a program for devices through the city. Is that correct?
So they are providing our digital navigation service. So they're the ones under contract for that digital navigation support. So they're supporting not only the 311 outreach that people can get connected to, and also, Ms. Mayfield, I forgot to mention, we do have the digital navigation on the CLT app currently, but you can, so people can use that program, which is offered through CDE and Queen's University. So that is the same person that we're working with.
Okay, so a individual would call 311, then be connected to the digital navigator to help them get a device, right? Or internet access or whatever their needs are, is that correct?
Any digital needs. So we've had people who call and they want to figure out how to get a job in technology. And some people call because they're trying to set up their internet at home or connect their devices that they just got from, maybe their child just brought over a new smartphone or a smart computer and they want to figure out how to connect. And so it's a wide range of services that they offer, but there is a big focus on how do we get those basic connections in there, including digital literacy, devices, and internet.
Thank you. So I know your programs are for the end users, but there are areas in the city, Mr. Jones, where we know are dead zones for internet. And I've talked to Renee Askew. She's been wonderful. I've called her from 77 on my way headed to the university area. There's this wall, I promise you, and you can't get internet from 77 till you're off Statesville. So we've talked about that. What projects are there? Because we're the 14th or 15th largest city now? And we want, when people travel through our city, to be able to use the internet or have access to the Wi-Fi. So what are we doing as a city to improve internet access in those large areas? W.T. Harris, right, near the research park. I mean, there are large pockets where you won't have phone service.
Yeah.
So what are we doing?
That's why you hanging up on me?
Yeah, that's why, yes, that was, it wasn't what you said.
You definitely selected the least qualified person in the room to answer that question with all those folks who are there. But I will tell you, and I believe I'm right with this, we did set aside some funds early on for those future technologies as it comes to bridging the digital divide. So as those technologies come on board, we didn't want to spend everything just on devices and connectivity, because we were also anticipating that there would be some more breakthroughs. And so we stand ready for as those breakthroughs come through. And there's a bunch of folks, well, he left, there's a bunch of folks to my left and right that I really think have a big opinion of that. And I will say this, and I hope that you see this, what you did at the last annual strategy meeting, I hope you see it's all starting to come together. That a lot of things that we are doing is more horizontal than vertical. And I think that we have the right priorities. We'll try those again when we get back into January. But, it's interesting to see Renee, and I'll leave you alone, Renee, on the edge of her seat because she seems like she wants to jump back into this. But there's a lot of passion around trying to do this.
And she did mention that she was identifying areas, right, and providers where their gaps are. So I don't know if there's an update. Okay.
So what you're referring to is gaps from a telco perspective. So we would have to work directly with those telcos to identify those gaps and see if they're going to rectify those in the future.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you both for this presentation. I'm very passionate about the digital divide and digital literacy, but it's clear from what you've presented tonight that we live in an age where digital literacy is a prerequisite for work readiness, right? With 91% of the jobs requiring some baseline digital skills. And we also live in an age where high-speed internet is effectively a basic infrastructure need. Just as we need water, gas, and electricity, our residents need high-speed access to high-speed internet. And you've made tremendous progress by bridging that gap by 25% from 2019 to today. So I want to thank you for that. I also just want to say this concept you have, the learn to earn is a fantastic concept. And I know you piloted it in West Boulevard in my colleague's district, but if you're ready to do a second pilot.
Always ready.
Or if you're ready for like a phase one rollout, I have a couple ideas, a couple neighborhoods or corridors, the Sugar Creek corridor, the Bridlewood, Hampshire Hill area, and the Central Avenue corridor are 3 great corridors in District 1 that hit those populations that you're looking for, and would be very happy to work with you to do an additional pilot or a phase one rollout. So thank you for the work and continue with the good job. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Rachel, great presentation. Just 2 quick questions. One, do we have any data that shows those who have lack of access? And I just take the pilot area we're looking at in the West Boulevard. Do we have any data?
We do have that data, and it's available online in a couple of different locations to see a map of the digital divide and where it's highest. And that breaks it down by both devices and also internet subscription.
And my second, just a follow-up. You know, we get asked the question all the time, how does the city partner with CMS? And I think this is one role we can play, you know, to solve some of the challenges. So do we have any idea how many CMS families are in need of connectivity or access to the internet?
We know that 71,000 households qualify through some of the services that are offered. Some of them have been taken up over the last few months. Of the 71,000 people, students, they are applying and getting the service for the ACP. But that's how we start. It's just looking at what are the qualifications. Some of them are through the lunch programs, and some of them are just through the school themselves.
Thank you, great. My last comment, City Manager, let's continue to let Rachel do the great job, but I think collaborating with CMS could be a win for all of us, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I don't have any other questions or comments, Mr. Jones, do you have anything else in your manager's report? That's good. Oh, Ms. Mayfield.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Manager Jones, as they step away, thank you for the report, but I wanted to follow up with you on some previous requests, so I wanted to give you a chance, because I think you were shaking your head that you didn't have an additional update for tonight, or you do?
Sure. Well, I know there's a couple of questions that you had with the breakdown, thank you, of homeownership versus rental.
And looking at that tax base,
Right,
yeah.
and we were going, I think, down a path that we shouldn't have, and that was the assessor. And we're now working with the planning department, and I think we're going to be able to give you a preliminary number as early as next week.
Thank you. I wanted to also ask, and this might be really a question for planning, but I'm going to ask you as part of your report, what do we currently have in place? And if not, what could consideration look like? And also for my colleagues to take into consideration. When we're looking at approving developments, to my understanding, we don't have a setback for when you're building near a cemetery. So we're doing a lot of infill building, and we have a number of cemeteries in our area where we're starting. I was driving around out and about throughout the city and noticed that a new development is going up and is rather close. And I don't know if there is a setback in our language regarding how far, like with some developments, 50 feet, 100 feet, 150 feet from the closest development. Do we have any language when we're looking at cemeteries? Because a good number of them are also connected to our religious institutions. So as we're building and as we're having conversations, making sure just to get an idea of what we have in place, if anything, and if not, consideration, so that when I'm asked, I'll be able, and my colleagues to be able to respond. Also, just want to get an update off of tonight's conversation. So earlier on the second floor, I mentioned that we received a report out last week, and it somewhat feels like we're giving conflicting information regarding that report out when we look at our review of our city code and ordinances. Does that conflict or complement this conversation that we're having a week later regarding social districts? And what is the impact of that? Because like even in Greenville, North Carolina approved social districts, but their times are 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., not 10 a.m. to 10. But we have some clear identified challenges that were presented to committee last week. I want to make sure that our language is creating the best possible outcome and that we're not contradicting in that language with a presentation one week and a different conversation the immediate week after. How is there a possibility to complement versus conflict?
No, that's a great question, Councilmember Mayfield. As Councilmember Anderson indicated earlier, there were a number of discussions amongst staff as it relates to the social district from CMPD being part of that. But I think what's clear to me tonight is you would also like to hear CMPD come and talk about their thoughts around not just only the social district, but some of the issues around decriminalizing certain ordinances.
Our code of ordinances.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Yeah, I had one last question for Rachel, and this may not be for Rachel. I remember during the height of COVID, there were hot spots that were given to homeless families, I believe. There were hot spots that were given to CMS. So when we talk about the CMS students, how are we serving those, I think, 3,000 to 5,000 CMS students? I believe that's the number that are homeless. Is there any type of mobile device that families are given, or is that a county role, or is there thought to that?
I do not have the most recent update on CMS hotspots, but I'm sure we can find that information. As for the internet right now, we are really working on working with our housing providers to get that internet through Access Charlotte. And that's not on the go, on demand, but it is providing people internet in their homes.
So we may want to work with the homeless shelters or to get that information to find out if there's a gap there that we need to bridge, or that if there are families that we can consider giving access to the internet,
Definitely.
So, thank you.
Thank you all very much. Thank you for the presentation. We will move on to the business portion of our agenda. We will start with item number 12, a home for all support, property provider recruitment and retention pilot. For item 12, is there a motion to approve the use of $500,000 from the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund to fund a property provider recruitment and retention pilot administered by the United Way of Greater Charlotte, and authorize the city manager or his designee to execute, amend, and renew contracts as needed to complete this transaction?
So moved.
Second.
It's a motion that's been properly made and seconded. Any questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. We'll move on to item number 13, Eastland redevelopments, sports and redevelopment. For item 13, is there a motion to authorize the city manager to move forward with the revised proposal, the complex that is a rethought and reimagined concept, which is the result of the requested collaboration of the two previous proposals of QC East at Eastland Yards and Eastland Yards Indoor Sports Complex for the eastern 29 acres of the former Eastland Mall site, and authorize the city manager or his designee to negotiate and execute agreements for the reimbursement of costs for expenses associated with indoor and outdoor amateur sports facilities, public infrastructure, and other public improvements in an amount not to exceed $30 million, which will be reimbursed from a combination of capital investment plan and convention center tax fund future certificates of participation as outlined in the resolution adopted by City Council on June 12, 2023.
So moved. Second.
There's been a motion that's been made and properly seconded. Do we have any questions or comments? Ms. Molina.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I know that some people may be just joining the meeting. In an earlier portion of the discussion, my colleagues had some very pointed questions about the follow-up with regards to Eastland. I just want to iterate how excited I am to see everything that has come together as a result of this exercise. Both parties are, they have representation here tonight. And I want to iterate the thank you to them, to the staff members, to, our council for, their willingness to support the East Charlotte community in this endeavor. And I just want to lift that up for anybody and encourage them to go back and make sure that they follow along for any updates that we'll have in the future with regards to Eastland Yards.
Thank you. Ms. Ashmira?
Thank you. Well, in addition to what my colleague, Councilmember Molina said, I just want to recognize all the work that the Charlotte East had done. Greg Asciutto, thank you for your leadership throughout this process, and Carolyn Millen and others who had joined us previously. We certainly appreciate your advocacy for the East Side. As a fellow East Side resident, I'm very appreciative of that, along with Councilmember Molina. Also, obviously, I'm very grateful for the development team, Mr. Durkin, Mr. Bolton. Appreciate your collaboration here, and obviously Mama Ivory and Papa Kenty. Thank you for all the late night calls and messages. Certainly appreciate all the community engagement that's being done. I'm just really pumped. I'm really excited. I've been on city council for almost 7 years, and this has been something that's just been, been a topic that we haven't been able to address in past 10 years. And this is the closest we have been to bringing a catalyst for the East Side that deserves a catalyst and that's going to bring jobs and opportunities. So I'm just super excited that finally we'll be able to deliver. And it might be a tall order, Ms. Dotson, for you, but if we can do anything about it where we don't have to wait 36 months, that would be great, because I think our East Side residents have waited far too long. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Watlington?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to, in light of our discussion upstairs, I know that it sounds like, I believe that there was tremendous support around the dais to definitely give the head nod to staff, but I also heard the concern, if you will, about locking in the 30 million or what might be more than 30 million later. And it just sounded like we'd like some language that would reflect agreement to move forward with also the intent to come back to council for an action to actually execute negotiations. So I wanted to understand from the attorney how or what that language could potentially look like, and then if it would be pleasing to the council, would offer up a friendly amendment to the motion if that is appropriate.
So what you have in front of you is I wouldn't call these deal points, but basically a general concept as to what we're trying to accomplish. If you were interested, and I think I understand your question, we can bring something, if the manager is in agreement, we can bring something back to you that will show that we have done what we said we're going to do on this sheet. So the issue is not to use that as an opportunity, not suggesting that you would, but as we're negotiating with the partners out there, to not bring something back to you and then have something new show up that night that isn't on this particular sheet. What we'd like to do, and I say we, I should only speak for myself, the manager can speak as well, but if you're talking about that, then I think you can add a friendly amendment to the motion that the administration, the city attorney, city manager, however you want to do that, will bring the agreement back to council to show that it is consistent with what was approved tonight.
So,
Just
can I-
consistency.
I have a question.
All right, hold on 1 second. Do you have a specific ask of
Yep, I was wondering if the motion maker would accept a friendly amendment to add that component to
Ms.
the.
Tynes, who do we have as the motion maker in the second?
The motion was made by
Ms.
Molina, and
Molina.
I had it seconded by Ajmira.
I have a question. So what's the amendment I'm not following?
It's to just add
Can you,
this.
can you read that language? Could you pass that around?
It's in my head. The gist of this, and I can put something out for you, but the gist of this is that in addition to A and B, you're also asking the administration to bring the completed agreement back to council to show that it's consistent with what you have passed tonight.
That's inherent in what we do.
It's just a question to the motion maker. You can or you cannot. It's either if you'd like to or if you don't like to. I accept
So I'm
whatever the
just-
will of the motion
can
maker
we
is.
Hold on.
I have a question. Mr. Jones, could you, because I thought that was already the intent of this motion that's here in front of us. I'm just
So
perplexed.
the last time you guys voted, it was unanimous. It'd be nice to get unanimous again. So it's the intent, and maybe intent is not strong enough of a word. So clearly, if we go outside of this 30 million, we'd come back. We're coming back, even if we're within the 30. We're just not going to all of a sudden do a deal without having a conversation with the council with something that's so important as this.
Got it. So in that case, I don't see an amendment because it's going to come in front of us anyways, because that's how I interpret it. Is that right?
It's the regular order of business.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't see a need for an amendment then, because it's
Okay.
going to come back to us anyways.
If that's what I'm hearing, that it is absolutely coming back,
Yes.
then.
Is that, are you okay, Ms. Martin? Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell,
Oh,
you're next in line, Mr. Mitchell.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I thought it was the conversation. So I'm just going to do a lot of thank yous this evening. And one, I got to tell a small story how this all started in 2016 at an ED meeting when a young lady who was representing District 2 at the time said that we ought to get into amateur sports. And that young lady over the years has just had tremendous passion about getting amateur sports in our community. So fast forward, she's no longer as young, but she's still young. And I say she's young at heart and young in spirit and young with passion. And so I want to publicly thank Ms. Canty for sticking with your vision since 2016 to make this reality for our community. This has been a tough lift for us, so I got to thank Dr. Victoria Watlington and how you pulled us together in the late hour to make sure we can get something that this council can be supported. Thank you for your leadership. I knew it was tough, but you was committed to make sure that there would be consensus. Thank you for Council Member Carter, Archery, and Newton. 3 years, you all have said, we need something on the east side. And tonight, we have that. So thank you for your continued support and passion over the years. Charlotte East, your patience, your advocacy, and believing that this council will do the right thing to give you something that's transformative, as we continue to say. There's one change I would like for staff to do, and I mentioned it in room 267, so I want to make a public announcement about it. Right now, the placeholder for this development is called the complex. I think this would be a good time to engage the citizens in District 5. What name do you think is appropriate for this new development? And I think it's a name that has to reflect your desire, your energy, your commitment to make sure there's something special in those 29 acres. So hats off to the new team. I see Bob up there, I see Raymond, I see Ms. Canty, and I see Mr. Bolton. Thank you all for collaborating and not only doing what's best for your vision, but more importantly, doing what's best for District 5. So hats off to you, and let's get it done. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Grant.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I too am extremely excited that we've gotten here. And the road of 1,000 miles start with one step. And we've taken several steps since we got an unsolicited proposal in December of last year to get us where we are today. Doing it in mind that, one, to fulfill the obligation that we have made for East Charlotte. I continue to remind the public that the 29 acres is not the start of this, it's the end of it. Last year, we had a tremendous groundbreaking in East Charlotte where we broke ground on affordable housing, senior housing, 18,000 square feet of retail, 4 to 5 acre county park, et cetera. And this concludes it. This 29 acres concludes it. It's the best of both worlds in terms of taking what works from QC East as well as the synergy proposal and blending them together for one. It makes good business sense to do that. The complex represents the identity of East Charlotte, i.e. The 6 soccer fields is a wink and a nod to the changing demographics over there that plays that sport. The amateur sports complex gives a wink and a nod to Charlotte as a destination location for amateur sports, whether it's AAU basketball, cheerleading, wrestling, volleyball, whatever. It creates a synergy for a place there for arts and entertainment, and the city has made the appropriate investment of $30 million, and we did that 3 months ago now, knowing that we wanted to be a part of the investment there, and I think the total investment, once this is all said and done, is going to be upwards to about $80 to $100 million for East Charlotte, which is not a small change. It's a good bit of money. I will say, however, that the devil's in the details. There's more work to be done. I had the opportunity to talk to both of the petitioners at the dinner meeting after we voted, and I'm excited about their commitment to work together. I'm excited about their commitment to make it work, their commitment to value engineering, right? And I think we all know what I'm talking about, right? To ensure that when it does come back, and it should, Councilmember Wallington, to dot i's, cross t's, to make sure that we protect the public investment, short-term and long-term, that we can kind of stay within the box if we can. But as I said at the dinner meeting, this council owns it. And there's no way for us to get around that. We cannot afford to not make this work and work within the box, right? But I'm excited about it. I'm excited about, I told my daughter, who's a college basketball coach, about what was on the agenda tonight, and she played AAU basketball, played college basketball, and she said, where was it when I was growing up? Right? And so obviously there's this place, and basically what we're doing is placemaking, right? And it's not just for East Charlotte, although it's located there. I mean, we want both of this facility to be a regional destination for citizens throughout Mecklenburg County to come to East Charlotte to participate at the facility, that while they're there to shop and dine and invest in East Charlotte, et cetera. And so I'm excited about it. I'm cautiously optimistic because it's not done until it's done, right? But I like the commitment of the team blending together. When Victoria and I talked that Sunday night, we both said, could this actually work? And we said, yeah, because let's take out what works and put to the side what didn't work. And even Councilmember Bakari, when I called him that Monday morning, he gave me the side eye, like, are you serious? And he has come full circle, saying, I think we can do this. And so I'm excited. I'm excited to see that we've been able to, and this is a political saying that I say all the time, It's really quiet here tonight, right? We've been able to block out the noise and focus on the work. And when you focus on the work and you take politics away from it, right, where we can kind of see that what the vision is, small people, small groups coming together as one for a singular vision for our community. So, Ms. Dodson, a lot more work to be done, but I'm committed to making sure this gets across the finish line. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Driggs?
Are we done talking about any modifications?
Oh, yeah.
All right? Okay, well, good. Having watched this for years and years, I am so pleased that we have come as far as we have. And Crosland Southeast has done a lot to help us get there. We now have this last thing that we needed to deal with after the Tepper withdrawal from the site. And so I look forward to supporting this. We all need to understand that we have to provide something of a mandate to the staff, right? And that's why if we started putting in all kinds of conditions and stuff, then their ability to negotiate. So I trust that it will get done as described, and that if there's any discrepancy from the description, that we will, have an opportunity to be told about that. But meanwhile, let's go for it. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
No comment, I'm fine.
All right, Ms. Molina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to circle back. Again, I want to iterate, I guess, the lift, because I think Councilmember Mitchell has continued to speak to it. But the inception of what you see today actually started with a conversation with Councilmember Watlington and I, where we peeled the entire opportunity apart. And we agreed to work together with what allies we have on the council. She split some of that responsibility with me. We called Councilmember Graham. We had a three-way call, and we talked about how we could execute this possibility. As I've said once, and I'll continue to say again, what it means to do something like this and how important it is for the lift. It's very important to have a collective lift, and divisiveness is absolutely not the way, especially for something as important as this. I love John Autry. He is my political mentor, and I have been with him since day one. I have lived in Charlotte for 19 years, so I've seen Eastland Mall be there, and I've seen Eastland Mall no longer be there. So it means just as much to me as a homeowner, as someone who actually lives in East Charlotte, bicycle distance from the opportunity to see this be realized, and for not only myself and my family, but the people who I know, I love, and I serve in East Charlotte. And I think that's the most important thing here. This was very hard. I've never seen anything for as long as I've orbited politics as hard as this has been, as seemingly divisive as this initially started out, and to see where it has landed, I think that's the most important thing here. And I think I share the sentiments of my colleague, the chair of the Economic Development Committee, in saying that, I am cautiously optimistic. I absolutely look forward to there being a wonderful outcome for all parties. But, I look forward to it being as stated originally, and the follow-up and any necessary adjustments that we made. But I think I ask of everybody involved that we keep what's the most important in front of us, and that is always to resolve this extremely long-standing issue. As a body, I am absolutely grateful for all of us coming together, for the wisdom that exists already on the council, and as a newer member, coming as a resident to represent the people that I live amongst, for your willingness to be malleable and be open to something as dynamic as what we were able to achieve, because what we done was unprecedented, and we done it together. And I think that's what's important. We done it together as a team. And I am grateful to each and every one of you. So I look again forward to the updates. I have no doubt that the team is going to continue to work hard for East Charlotte. And I look forward to going ahead and resolving those remaining 29 acres. So thank you all.
Thank you. We've had a motion that's been made and properly second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Fourth. Thank you very much. We will move on to the nominations portion of our agenda. Tonight, City Council will also consider nominations to various boards and commissions. Council members submitted their nominations earlier to the clerk on paper and via email. Names of the nominees will not be read at the dais. Tomorrow, the clerk will email City Council the names of applicants that receive at least 2 nominations. These candidates will be considered for appointments at the next business meeting. Any applicant receiving 6 or more nominations can be considered for appointment tonight upon a motion, second, and majority vote of council. The names of all nominees will be recorded in the official minutes of the meeting. The clerk will now proceed with announcing the results of the nominations.
Mayor Pro Tem, can I read through all of them before you? Thank you. For the Bicycle Advisory Committee, Tammy Brock received 9 nominations. Matt Weschler received 8 nominations. For the Business Advisory Committee, Curtis Hayes received 11 nominations.
Oh, Curtis.
For the Charlotte Tree Advisory Committee, incumbent Sarah Hart received 11 nominations, and Charlie Welch, incumbent, received 11 nominations. For the Community Relations Committee, Jocelyn Bailey received 10 nominations, and Charles Balford received 11 nominations, and Marion Orr received 11 nominations. For the Domestic Violence Advisory Board, Herbert Diaz received 11 nominations. For the Housing Appeals Board, incumbent Cemental Grayson Roundtree received 10 nominations. For the Enlivian of Commissioners, incumbent Antoine Denard received 11 nominations. For the Historic District Commission, we had no applications. We'll have to bring that one back. For Keep Charlotte Beautiful, Doris Shivers received 11 nominations, and for both the Passenger Vehicle for Hire and the Transit Service Advisory Committee, we'll have to bring those back.
Move to approve all those who got 6 or more.
We have a motion that's been made and properly second. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. Seeing none, that is unanimous. Unless anybody opposes.
Meeting
adjourned.
That's right. 8 o'clock.
Nice.
Favor, please.